The Arkansas Razorbacks last year, they went 7-6. Now, I thought that this team was going to be the biggest sleeper in the SEC last year, and they weren't. But they had a lot of things that they were dealing with. They had injuries. They also ended up losing two of their coordinators during this offseason. So I think for Arkansas this year, they're still capable of being a team that can win 9 to 10 games. I do like the fact that they bring in Dan Enos as their offensive coordinator, and turns out he actually was their offensive coordinator before, years prior. And when Dan Enos was in his first stint as the OC for the Razorbacks, they had some of their best offenses in program history under him. And for the offensive talent that they have going into this year, I think it's pretty good. One of the biggest concerns is probably going to be wide receiver. Now, you may be a little bit iffy on the offensive line, but Sam Pittman is a really good offensive line coach, so I think that he's going to have this offensive line playing better than what it did last season. Wide receiver, they got some really good receivers out of the transfer portal. So when I look at Arkansas, from an offensive standpoint, your two best players are going to be Rocket Sanders and KJ Jefferson, who is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. And one thing I think that is really underrated and not talked about enough when it comes to describing how great of a quarterback KJ Jefferson is that this dude doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And when you got quarterbacks who not just are really good at, throwing the football accurately like KJ Jefferson is and making plays with his legs and doesn't turn the football over, you're going to be in a lot of close games. And last year, Arkansas only won 7 games, but they could have easily won 9 or 10 of them. You got to remember, they barely lost to LSU. It was 13-10. They had that crazy upset to Liberty, and then they got upset by Mizzou 29-24. But when you look at their schedule this year, though, I do think that there are some games here that they could get some breaks and they could have things go their way. But the biggest thing that we got to talk about for Arkansas, if they're even going to have a chance at winning 9-10 games this year, is this damn defense, bro. Like, this defense was awful last year. This was one of the worst defenses in all of college football and probably the worst defense in the SEC. Like, the defense that Arkansas had last season was unacceptable for a school in the SEC football conference, man. So, are they finally going to have a defense that's SEC caliber this year? Now, they do have a new defensive coordinator named Travis Williams. Now, I'm not going to question the hire. I'm just a little bit skeptical about it because I don't really think that UCF's defense was all that great. And I think they do got really good numbers, but they didn't really do anything good when you look at what they were against the run. 84th in rushing yards per game allowed, 78th against the pass. Like, I just don't think his defense was all that good at UCF, but I'm going to give him a chance because Arkansas, they do have a really talented secondary. You got Dwight McGlothern, who was a SEC first teamer. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the SEC. He had 14 pass breakups, and he also had 4 interceptions last season. My bad, y'all. You also got Jaheim Singletary. I went to high school with him, a.k.a. Slim. He went to Georgia. He didn't really play his freshman season, but this dude is like a Jalen Ramsey clone. Crazy size and amazing athleticism. So I think that he's going to be an impact transfer for Arkansas, and they're going to have one of the best cornerback duos in the SEC this year. Now, I also think that you're pretty good at your other secondary spots. You got a really good guy from Baylor coming in at your slot cornerback position, and Hudson Clark was a first-team All-SEC performer last year. So defensively, the talent is there for Arkansas secondary to at least improve when it comes to how they played last year. Now, their linebacker unit is really good. I think linebacker probably is where they have the most depth and talent at on their defense. You got Chris Paul Jr. who returns. You also get USF transfer Antonio Greer, who was one of the better linebackers in the American Conference. And last year he had to deal with some injuries. But when he's on the field, this dude is a really good linebacker. And then when you look at the defensive line, the guy who I'm the most excited about is London Jackson. Now, London Jackson, last season, he was coming in from LSU, and he played pretty well. He had 3 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss, 23 tackles. So I think that London Jackson is a guy who could end up breaking out this year. He has crazy athleticism for his size. I mean, this dude is 6'7", 269 pounds. So he's another athletic freak, just like how Drew Sanders, the linebacker that played for you last year, was an athletic freak. So I think that their linebacker unit is really good, and I do like London Jackson. Now, I don't know how I feel about the defensive line. They did get a good defensive tackle from Missouri, but I just don't really think they got a lot of great depth on their defensive line, especially when it comes to their tackle spots. But I guess we'll see. But overall, I do like their linebackers, and I do think that they have a lot of talent at that position and a lot of depth. If one guy goes down, they should have guys who should be able to fill in at a serviceable level. And I think that their secondary can also be pretty good, but that defensive line, I just don't know about it. And offensively, they're still going to be really good. Isaac Tesla, Andrew Armstrong were 2 of the more notable wide receivers that they picked up via the transfer portal who should have a good season. I think this offensive line should improve this year. And when you look at their schedule, I think there's the possibility that they could win 10 games. Now, they should go 3-0 before they play Texas A&M or before they play LSU on the road. That LSU game could go either way. I don't think that LSU is at the level right now where, you know, they're going to be mounds and mounds more talented than Arkansas. I think Arkansas has a chance to beat LSU at home. You could beat Texas A&M, so I think that Arkansas is at least going to beat LSU or Texas A&M during this stretch. Then you got to play Ole Miss on the road and Alabama on the road, Mississippi State. Then you get a bye before you get to play probably the more lighter part of your schedule. You got Florida on the road, which is never easy, but Florida might not be that good this year. You got Auburn, FIU, and Missouri. So I think worst case scenario, 7 wins. Now my actual record prediction for Arkansas probably would be 8 or 9 wins. I probably would go with 9. I think 10, probably best case scenario, will be like a dream year for Arkansas, given the fact that you got to survive that awful stretch of LSU, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Alabama. So if they could at least win 2 of those games, LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, I think they would be in really good shape to win 10 games. And really, that's the only portion of the schedule where that probably could trip them up. But I think Arkansas is being really slept on this year in the SEC, man. Like, Arkansas plays a tough schedule every year, and last season they had some injuries that kind of held them back. So I'm really looking forward to watching the Arkansas Razorbacks play this year. I think that this is a team that probably could finish amongst the top 4 teams in the SEC West this year. I don't expect them to be a 7-win team this year. I definitely think with how this schedule looks this year, they're capable of winning 8 to 9 games. Dan Enos, I think he's going to be a pretty good fit replacing the former offensive coordinator that they lost to TCU. Barry Odom, he's with UNLV now. His defense wasn't really that good anyway. So I think Arkansas is going to be a team that is going to surprise a lot of people this year. But